Guru Nation, Happy New Year's, Happy 2025. I just really needed an excuse to use the New Year's declaration before I take it down. But I want to wish you a Happy New Year, and if you're watching this in the future, doesn't matter what year it is, the concept here is timeless. It hasn't changed since I started in research, which is 2005. And so 20 years ago. And it's probably going to be something similar in 2045. So if it changes, subscribe. No ads here. And I'll definitely let you know what I think. But how to go from entry level to leadership roles in clinical research. And it's definitely a journey. And you are not going to be the same person you are today when you are a leader. Hopefully you have a much stronger skill set. You're going to definitely need more technical knowledge. Maybe you've had positions of leadership in the past, so you have the soft skills of how to be a leader. You're just missing some technical skills. You're missing maybe some therapeutic area expertise. There's a lot that you have to master as you traverse your career. The good news is you've got time. You don't need to rush it. And I know a lot of people are watching saying, yeah, easy for you to say, I need more money. Like, things are more expensive. I get it. And no one's stopping you. I'm not telling you to slow down. I'm telling you the first opportunity you get, you go for it. The way, if you're like me, you're always looking for better opportunities to better yourself. But make sure you define for yourself what better means. Because money is not the only criteria. And if you sit down, get some popcorn, get whatever drinks, beverage, food you like, and watch some of my longer interviews with guests on this channel, we dive deep into burnout, mental health. Sometimes it's not worth the extra pay. Sometimes it's like what you thought you wanted when you were younger. When you get it, you realize, it's not really what I wanted. And so only you're going to be able to answer those questions. But basically, the trajectory for anyone in this industry, if you have potential and you have the ability to master new skills and the ability to engage with other people, which is key. AI is not going to be able to do that as well as we are, at least for the next decade or so. You're going to have to figure out how to go about interacting with people and how to launch your career in that regard. So when you first get started in this space, you're most likely going to be starting at a site. The sites are usually the ones that hire the entry-level people first. And not to say that the CROs and the sponsors don't do that, because they will give certain people a chance. There is such a thing as nepotism. There is such a thing as who you know and you can get in. But for the most part, the majority of you watching, it's going to be at a site. And at that site, that's the perfect breeding ground for you to develop your skill set. Because at that site, and I suggest and I believe the smaller the site, the more responsibilities you're going to have. You're going to eventually master or beginning to start to master the skill set and the tool belt of a generalist. So one of my favorite books I ever read was Poor Charlie's Almanac. It's Charlie Munger's book. And in it, he talks about having multiple tools in your toolbox. Because as he says, to a man with a hammer, everything's a nail. And he wants you to have more tools so that when you come across a problem, you don't just have a hammer. A hammer is not good for most things. So you should pull out a screwdriver, a power drill, a saw, whatever the case may be. The analogy is you're developing these tools. In our industry, you have to build your own tools. You have to design and craft your own tools and the tools of your career. Now, those are technical skills, those are hard skills, those are soft skills, those are interpersonal skills. All the skills needed to navigate your own career is its own skill set as well. So the small site is the best place to be able to hone your skill set. Now, it may not seem like the same industry that you abstractly had in your head when you decided you wanted to get in clinical research, because it's not that idealistic. There's no such thing as this idealistic image or symbol of what clinical research is. I know when I came into this industry, I definitely had this idealistic abstraction of what I thought clinical research was. And in many ways, it can be like my original ideas, but it's certainly more different than it was similar to this abstraction I had. So the research boils down to study participants, who we're not supposed to call patients, but every research site does. Study participants doing studies, and the research site following the protocol, following GCP, and following their own SOPs, and making sure that the patients are happy, making sure the sponsors are happy, making sure the monitors are happy, and making sure the regulators are happy. It sounds easy, it's damn near impossible to do, because not all those stakeholders have similar interests, incentives, track the same key performance indicators. But don't let that bother you. The silver lining is you're going to understand all these stakeholders and what they need, and slowly you'll start developing or thinking of ways to bring value to those stakeholders too. Because right now in 2025 and going forward, it's a very tech-driven industry. I've never seen this much tech in this space, and that's probably to be expected, but the rate of acceleration of technology in this space is faster than it's ever been, and it's probably going to continue. The one thing all these tech vendors have in common is they have no clue what the research sites want. They have no clue what the sponsors or CROs want. And so you're developing your skills and your knowledge is already becoming a valued asset to other stakeholders in this industry. So you're not just becoming an asset for your own organization, you're becoming, your mind at least, your knowledge, your experience is becoming an asset for other organizations. Same thing with the CROs. The CROs, even though they're not hiring right now as we speak, and the sponsors, the same thing applies to them, sponsors are hiring a little more right now, they often don't understand what it's like at the site level. And they're getting all these issues from the sponsors or their superiors saying, hey, well, why isn't the site enrolling more patients? Why aren't the sites answering their queries? Why aren't the sites entering data? And so it boils down to a CRA communicating with a CRC. The majority of this industry is CRA and CRCs interacting. And then patients are also in the mix too. That's literally the majority of, like 80% of this industry's interactions. Yes, the PIs are there, you need them, but they delegate almost everything other than safety, important safety things, of course, to the coordinators. And then the CRAs and the coordinators are supposed to make sense and bring order to all this chaos. That's the industry in a nutshell. Now, how you climb those ranks is it's an open canvas for you, basically. So you're going to start at the site level. Most people then usually transition from some coordinator role at a site into either a site director at that same site or a bigger site, or that site also grows and becomes part of a site network, and then maybe this coordinator never leaves the site stakeholders but stays there, but becomes a director level, and you can even become an executive at that site. Or you go to the other stakeholders, you start experimenting with the tech vendors, you start experimenting with the CROs, you start experimenting with the sponsors and the biotechs. Sometimes you go to the regulators, you go to the FDA, sometimes you go to nonprofits, sometimes you go to the tech vendors, which I discussed earlier, sometimes you go to the IRBs. But all of that stems from cultivating your initial toolbox at the site. And it takes about 2 years to know what you're doing to be a decent coordinator. It probably takes another 2 to 3 years to expand your toolbox. And this includes not just technical skills I discussed, but also interpersonal skills, soft skills, etc. While we're going to take it to calculus a little bit, you've got to integrate all your skills with networking. Continuously be networking. Always be networking. This is why conferences are so important. Conferences like Save Our Sites, which is my own, but not just my own. ACRP has good local chapter meetups. There's plenty of conferences out there. LinkedIn is absolutely free. You can network with people in your industry on LinkedIn. They have problems. All these people you're going to come across have problems. They're all in the research space. They all have problems. They all need solutions. And maybe you can fit in with one of them. A big opportunity for people that have truly mastered the skill set at the site level is to go out on their own and become contractors or become consultants. So that's leadership as well. But let's say you go the more traditional route. You don't go the entrepreneurship route, but you go the employee route, climbing the ranks of leadership. Eventually, if you have talent and you've mastered, and you can create the talent, it's not something you need to be born with. If you have work ethic, talent, and good networking and good communication skills, you can find yourself in a position of leadership, and at every stage of the process, you can expand your leadership. So you can go from a research assistant at a site or a patient recruiter at a site to a coordinator to a site director to maybe now that site becomes part of a site network. So now you're like a regional site director. Maybe now you get to be a project manager at a CRO or a sponsor or a lead CRA or a senior CRA or a CTM, which is a clinical trial manager. At that point, you can then do the same thing, be a study director at a sponsor. You can be an executive at a tech company or like someone close to like a position of leadership where you're in charge of other people. That process usually takes another 5 to 10 years. So it's about 2 to 5 years at the site. Then it's another 5 years of kind of developing your leadership skills and gradually increasing your leadership capabilities. So now you're in charge of 5 people. Now you're in charge of 10 people. Now maybe you're in charge of 25. That process right there takes anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Or for some people, it never pans out because either they don't want it, they realize they don't want that responsibility, or they're perfectly fine being a CRA or a project manager or a CTM and only managing like a small group of people. Or maybe they work at a sponsor and they're like a small sponsor and they love that. But the point is, you're in control. And it is still leadership to some extent and to some degree. And the majority of people that enter this space do want to be in some form of leadership role, either for themselves, where they're maybe a thought leader for other companies and make a living that way, or an actual manager, executive with a reputable organization that they can actually affect some positive change in the industry. That's how you do it. There's no shortcuts. There's no faster way to do it. If you find a faster way of doing this, let me know. I don't think it's sustainable because I don't think you can replace that initial 2 to 5 years at that site level and then continuing to hone those next 5 to 10 years in a more mature kind of organization where you're now seeing the same industry, maybe the same studies, but from a different perspective. And now you're going to have a more holistic view and understanding of the industry. I don't think you can speed that up. I don't think there's a Cliff Notes version for that. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Let me know what you think. Happy New Year.